in just a couple of minutes, Win by Design. So go grab a glass of water, coffee, whatever you need, get situated here, and we will be live in just about 2 or 3 minutes. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to our webinar series. And this evening, we are going to be talking with Jared Perente from Dental Warranty Corp. He is the CEO of Dental Warranty, and he's going to be walking us through his presentation, Win by Design, Transforming Your Patient Experience for Predictable Success. Now, before we get started here, I'd like you, if you can, to use the chat function to post any questions you might have. As soon as you've got a question, go ahead and type it in and ask it, and we will try to get those questions answered as we move through this presentation. All right, so without further ado, Jared, I thank you for joining us, and I'm going to pass this presentation on to you. It's all yours.
Very good. Thanks so much, Scott. Really happy to be here with you guys. Excited to dive in. A little bit of background on me, real quick, just to kind of set the course of where I've been and where we're going to go in this presentation. So I've been just about 20 years or so in healthcare across various verticals, startups, and growth stage ventures, and so much of that time has been spent on right between the patient-provider relationship, so improving that experience, that outcome on both sides, and it's become an increasingly interesting equation that continues to morph and to change. And so my goal today is to get into that a little bit, get into that formula, dive into that formula a little bit together, and highlight where your focus ought to be if you want to improve patient loyalty and satisfaction, and then give you some practical frameworks by which you can apply the principles and build on that, and to make loyal patients a more predictable outcome of your strategy as you look to improve your practice. So with that, let's get into it a little bit here. So first, some locating. So we are smack in the middle of this convergence. It's been happening for a long time, but it's picking up in pace rapidly, of consumerism, our lives in retail and everything else we do, and healthcare. It's just totally collided, and what used to be two totally separate worlds is now hardly distinguishable, especially in dentistry. There are so many retail elements in the world of dentistry that the two are very hard to distinguish. And today's modern patients today are really behaving a lot more like savvy customers in the retail world than ever before. They want more from you, they expect more from you, and they want the same convenience and the same transparency, the same empathy, all of it that they get in their retail lives in the healthcare that you provide. So that science between delivering that service and that experience and the signs of loyalty is changing. The consumer behavior and social behavior is definitely taking over. So meet your new competition, because that is it. It is no longer, or increasingly less, about the other dental providers in town, down the street. And it is a lot more to do with keeping up with these principles and understanding what you're up against when it comes to garnering the attention and giving patients the experience that they're looking for when they come to your office for care. This sums it up really nice. Everyone understands the age of Amazon. Scott, you're a good singer. I'll give you $50 to sing this whole song. I didn't think you'd take me up on it.
No.
Nonetheless, though, we all know it's an I want it right now kind of world. And so instant gratification is a piece of this. Friction-free expectations and transparency and trust, again, are all huge, whether that's pricing, the way you outline treatment options, and even the way you communicate. Simple, straightforward, empathetic, kind of the whole customer is always right. A lot more of that is weighing in on the consumerism side as it comes into play with their care.
I mean, I want it right now could also mean I want to get an appointment today or tomorrow, right? I need to get an appointment as soon as possible. Or I want it right now, meaning I really wanted to come here for a cosmetic purpose. Don't add friction. Don't make me go through and jump through other dental hoops before I can get what I actually want. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Spot on. I mean, it plays in a million ways, and more than we could even have time to get into, but you got the flavor on that. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And so also a little bit of odds, because we all know that the attention is so much of a currency these days. And so it's not even about necessarily helping patients understand the clinical care that they need, but rather how to prioritize it. Our lives are moving at like light speed these days. And so capturing their attention, helping it fit into their priorities when we're in a world of increased distraction and we're everywhere all the time, all at once, is another part of the battle here in getting them locked in and having a good experience with your practice. So that combined with social shifts, the way we spread word of mouth, the way that our experiences are shared, I mean, that's just like light years away from what it used to be. I mean, nowadays, anybody has a rough experience or anything that doesn't equate, and it's like blast off online, and you've got a totally different ordeal to take care of. And so how word of mouth has traveled has had a huge impact on the things that you need to be paying attention to. And, you know, studies behind that are pretty interesting as well. And it's another one that kind of stacks up against us in the service world. So really interesting research by Gardner showed the difference between how our experiences are shared with a product versus a service experience. So when a customer has a positive experience with a product, 71% of the time they will share it. When they have a negative experience, only about 32% of those times will they share that as well. It's completely almost inverse and amplified when it comes to service experiences. So over here on the right, you can see when a customer has a positive experience with the service, only 25% of the time will they share that. When they have a negative experience with service, 65% of the time. So it's totally flipped, and it's almost like a therapy, or it's like, you know, I need to blast it out the world because I need everyone to resonate with me and feeling the pain of the experience I had. So stuff to be paying attention to big time, and the consequences about getting it, you know, with getting it right or not. So
Yeah, so
Scott, I feel good.
Yeah, it's kind of like if it's a product, like I either liked this thing or didn't like this thing. I don't really need to tell the whole world I didn't like this thing, right? But if it's a service, that's a person that did me wrong. Like I was mistreated, and that triggers me to want to be vocal about it, because in a way I need to respond or react to being mistreated. So I think what you've said so far is we've got to be very focused on the patient perception of that service and maybe better than we used to be, or at least remove parts of the friction of it, right? So that we don't accidentally get a patient hung up on a negative experience. But in addition to that, we've got to be available right now. We've got to be very convenient, very fast, very accommodating to if they want something like so. So we have to be good enough that we have very little friction to get people in when they want to come in. And then when they are in, we have to be very thoughtful to make sure we reduce or eliminate these moments of negativity that can happen clinically, they can happen financially, right? They can happen logistically. So did I say that correctly?
You did. You did. In fact, I'll share something I read the other day, and it's a little bit radical, but I believe it to some degree, and it lines up with what you're saying. So there's a stat out there that somebody surveyed patients, and the result they got was that up 60% of them would change providers just to have a more convenient scheduling process, whether that was online or was something that just fit their mode of life, where it's like, when I need to jump on and schedule something, if I need to change an appointment, whatever it is, if I can have that immediacy, I would change providers for that. And that's wild.
But I don't know if it's so wild, because think about how we all act. Like if we have to make a reservation somewhere and it's difficult to make a reservation somewhere, if we're not dead set on that spot, that dinner spot, but it's hard to like figure out how to get a reservation, we may just choose another spot. We know it's easy to get a reservation, right? So unless we're dead set on it, we're not really willing to go through the friction of it. And I totally understand that, because as dentistry gets commoditized, because one dentist seems like another dentist, a crown is a crown, right? We are in a way getting commoditized. Then more and more people view us as the same, and therefore whichever has less friction is going to get that patient's attention. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. So this sets this up nicely. So let's dig into this a little bit further. So clearly we've got new terrain to navigate, and to paths to see and to go down if we're going to get this right. And the conventional wisdom, the gurus, everything in service, historically has been so much about above and beyond service, and that will win the day. If you exceed expectations, you will satisfy patients, and they'll be delighted and they'll come back. That's how you get loyalty. And the big question for me today is, has that game changed? Has that game changed? And we're going to explore that a little bit and show you what modern consumer research tells us about that, what it reveals, and it may surprise you. And it definitely flips that conventional wisdom on its head. So let's dispel a few myths. So myth one is that if I exceed patient expectations, I'll win their loyalty. And here's the reality. So this is based on groundbreaking research from the Corporate Executive Board, or CEB, which was acquired by Gartner. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's one of the biggest consumer research companies in the world. And here's what it tells us. So the reality is that exceeding expectations does not significantly increase loyalty. Exceeding expectations does not significantly increase loyalty. So only marginally does it increase loyalty. And so when they surveyed everybody, all the executives, everybody, putting the strategy and the plan together, their perception of what that would do is this dotted line here, that you meet expectations, and then after that point, it's like a hockey stick. It just goes way up and loyalty goes through the roof. Here's the reality. Actual customer behavior is that once their expectations are met, it only marginally gets better. So whatever razzle dazzle, extras, perks, all of that stuff, it's well-meaning, and it's great to have a different experience like that. But you got to realize, you got to understand that it only marginally increases it from there. And in the meantime, so the issue with that primarily is that a lot of companies will fall short on meeting the main expectations as they seek to do all this above and beyond stuff, and they lose focus on what matters most.
So in other words, a patient has in their mind what matters most to them, maybe being on time, not feeling a bunch of pain, and understanding what they need. And if we do those things, we're going to get the loyalty. If we miss one of them, we don't. Even if we gave them a pillow, a neck pillow, and a blanket, and a TV, and all these extra, the razzle dazzle you said, that doesn't make up for the core thing they wanted, us missing it. I might add to this. I wonder if maybe our view of exceeding expectations shouldn't be, are we doing extra stuff they didn't expect? Maybe it's just that we get exceedingly predictable in meeting expectations, meaning we don't falter in those expectations. We're so predictable. So like every time they come in, it's the same experience. It's not necessarily an experience for the king of a country and all the razzle dazzle, but what it is meets all the expectations, and it's like that every single time. It's the same. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, no, you're onto something, and we'll get a little further in here, and you'll see where that shapes up really nicely with more of the research. Okay, so myth 2, satisfied patients will stay. So this breaks that open a little bit, Scott. So satisfied patients will stay. The reality is that satisfaction alone does not predict retention. So we'll build on this, but satisfaction alone does not predict retention. So the research found that there was very little correlation actually between satisfaction and loyalty, and that 60 to 80% of the customers who ultimately left any given company said that they were satisfied or very satisfied when they were last surveyed. So patients who reported having their expectations met, and they were baseline satisfied, ultimately left. So it wasn't the predictor of them sticking around. So there's a disconnect between satisfaction and loyalty alone. And while it certainly matters, there's a chasm here. There's a gap to cross. Being satisfied alone is not going to do it. So more on Gartner's research, it digs further into what does matter most. Starting here, and this one will kind of knock your socks off a little bit. It did when I first saw it. Here's what they found. Service interactions tend to drive disloyalty more so than they do drive loyalty at a ratio of about 4 to 1. So about 4 times, any given experience is about 4 times more likely to drive disloyalty than it is to drive loyalty. It's crazy. It's crazy. So to fully understand this.
Yeah. Continue, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So to fully understand this, they narrowed this down to uncover the kinds of experiences, good and bad, that had the biggest impact within this, right? So like what goes in, what has an impact on that one positive experience? What are the things that drive that? And then what are the things that make up this negative part? What is it that is driving the disloyalty specifically? And so here's what they found. So for that one positive, that one times positive, the majority of that, moments of wow, exceeding expectations, this is that marginal improvement. And then far in the other direction, almost 4 times more, is what I call this X factor. And if you're not paying attention to it in the meantime, while you're trying to drive those moments of wow, you may nail those, but you're going to be dropped over 3 up to 4 times further in the wrong direction if you're not getting right. And it's effort.
Okay,
so here's what they found.
So can we, and by the way, I don't see your face on the camera anymore. I don't know if you've got, if your camera turned off or not. I don't know if it's just me noticing that. Also, I'm having to click through the slides myself. I don't know if you're clicking on those, but I'm having to click through them myself. So is everything working on your end?
Yeah, my back. It said I had a connection issue, but it says I'm back on.
Okay. I definitely don't see you. So I'm going to if you could just tell me to click. I don't think your clicking is working for everyone else. So just tell me when to click. Right now I'm showing the slide. It says 0.86 times impact and then the X factor. So back to, are you saying that when you said service interactions tend to drive disloyalty 4 to 1, can you explain that again? What does that mean? Service interactions tend to drive disloyalty 4 to 1.
Yes. So basically, for any given service interaction, there are different impacts, positive and negative.
Mhm.
And when you stack them all up, the tally in the negative towards disloyalty, the drivers in the disloyalty column are about 4 times greater than the things that stack up in the positive direction or towards more loyalty.
So you're saying
So the
that
thing,
whenever we have a moment of interaction with a patient, that there are 4 times more things that could make that become a negative moment compared to making it become a positive moment. Is that what that means?
exactly. And then again, in summary, every service interactions in general tend to drive disloyalty. And
Right.
then we'll get into the things that
we
Mhm.
want to minimize then how many service interactions we might have in a way. Is that what you're saying?
if you're not paying attention to the things that will get it right.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
kind of where we get into the next step, right? So if you're paying attention to the sex factor, if you're paying attention to the things that increase effort for your patients, then you're going to minimize that impact, and ultimately that trend is going to lift for you in your practice because you're paying attention to what matters. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So let's see if I've got my. Did that move for you,
Yes, that
Scott?
moved. That worked. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'll check in with you time to time to make sure I'm not, you know, talking a year down the road when you guys are what the, what the heck are you looking at?
Yeah.
Okay. So effort. this is where it's won and lost. So um, the research also broke open and got into uh, service frameworks that you can use to minimize effort and to clear the path and to focus on the types of things that are going to stack up in that column and set you off course when it comes to increasing loyalty. And so these first 2 areas are first what they call first contact resolution, and this is getting it right the first time. Designing up front as close to an effortless experience as possible, or in those events in the patient journey where a follow-up or a next touch is expected, it's getting it right that time. So it's right out of the gate, or it's on the first shot with your follow-up. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then the next one is around what they call next issue avoidance. And that is your ability to map out and anticipate and address different events and issues before they become greater and more quantifiable, issues downstream in the journey. So it's solving for tomorrow, today, in a way, and being able to look at the big picture. This is a lot like any traffic jam or car accident, right? What we see is an issue right in front of us, but in reality, it came downstream from something else. And so being able to map that out and see the big picture and tweak and tune is a service framework that will do a lot of good for your practice and your planning. So I wanted to put together some simple practical exercises that would get you started and getting together with your team and going through and putting some of these frameworks to work for you as you map out your loyalty plan. So the first one is what I call take inventory of effort. So it's to sit down on a regular basis and to go over and identify those points of friction or hassle or whatever it may be, whatever you would define as effort that you could improve to make it better for your patients. So a couple examples, and again, this is just a few. Rough in general, it's going to be much more impactful as you sit down and do this for your own practice. But wait time is an obvious one. Are patients hanging around? Are they waiting too long to get in and be seen? Scheduling, we talked about this already. Just efficiency in the process of that. Another way of looking at that is the availability on your schedule, and this one goes a little bit deeper, right? But if you're having to book out too far, that's a problem. That ultimately becomes too much effort for the patient, waiting too long to be able to get in. How you go about addressing uncertainty or the unknown with patients. So, dentistry, you all know this, it can be a super emotional thing for patients. And so there's a lot of unspoken concerns, questions that sometimes, if you're not in the mindset of handling and anticipating those things, that can become a hard experience, harder than it has to be for the patient. And so there's a lot you can do to make that way better as you anticipate those needs. With financial arrangements and billing, clear expectations up front, having a smooth process for it, having finance options, so at least 2 to 3, so you can solve the question of how am I going to pay for this. Those are all super important things that you could be looking at. Let's see. So impersonal interaction causes more effort and strain for patients. So having a lack of empathy or compassion in the process, or not paying enough attention to different patient types, personality types and styles, and so you can tailor the way that you deliver the message so that it's received better. Your post-care follow-up and guidance, so you can prevent callbacks back and forth, and then documentation and notes. This is a huge one, right? Good notes takes care of everybody, right? It's internally, it's like jumping into a chart and being able to pick up and take over. It's amazing. I think we've all probably had this experience when you go into a doctor's office of any kind, and you're either refilling out forms, you're answering the same question 100 times, or every time you come in, because it seems like nobody's paying attention to what we last talked about or what you're here for. I hear crazy stories about this all the time. So being diligent in that effort makes a big difference.
I think a lot of us dentists that own practices kind of initially set our practice up a certain way. And then we had an office manager, we had a treatment coordinator, we had our employees kind of tweak and change things here or there. And we might have gotten disconnected with what it's actually like to be a patient now. What's it like to call? What's it like to walk in the door? What's it like to have to fill out the forms, or sit in the chair and get the x-rays and so forth. So what I think you're saying is, on one hand, we need to think about that on a regular basis. Maybe what we teach in our CEO seminar, CEO training, is once a quarter, once every 3 months, we go through this process of asking what's working and what's not working. And maybe on that list should be this patient experience around these specific interactions. I think also what you're saying is, we should maybe write down or record every negative interaction that we perceive. If a patient was negative, we should probably write that down to make a record or to note that, so that once a month we can look at these things and read where the friction points are, and we can stay connected to that. Because to your point, if we allow these negative interactions to pile up, we're going to push that patient right out of practice, and we're never going to know it. We're never going to know why. We're never going to realize it. We have to be thoughtful about it. Did that make sense? Totally.
That's perfect suggestion, Scott. And we all know this. It's too easy to let things perpetuate. The whirlwind takes over. We keep going. We keep doing our best to keep up with all the other priorities and things. And so writing it down in the moment and addressing it in a regular way like that makes it simple. It whittles the system down to something that's manageable, and that's genius. It makes so much sense.
There is a lot of crap we have to think about. We not only is it hard enough to get to work and get the day started and stay on time and in by lunch, it's also difficult to run the business. It's difficult to remember all the things we're supposed to audit and check. It's difficult to have the meetings we're supposed to have. It's difficult to fit extra patients into the schedule. It's difficult to stay in touch with the patient experience with these efforts, these interactions. And that is where I think that people that are coached, they're kind of coached and led into a cadence of how to be a CEO. What meetings am I supposed to have, and what are we supposed to look at or think about in these meetings? And I think what you're doing, Jared, right now, you're kind of exposing an area of a dental practice that the owner's disconnected with. the friction our practice delivers to the patient experience, causing the patient to have to work harder to be our patient. We don't think about that because it's not right in front of our face. We have to have the discipline to pause and think about it on a regular basis. So I love what you're talking about. I apologize for interrupting you.
No, that's huge, Scott. I mean, it's bingo. It's so much this, look, as a CEO myself, that's ultimately where you become successful is creating cadences like this, because you don't have time or the exposure or, to, not all the time at least, right, to deal with it, nor is it the right time to do it in an appropriate way. So creating these frameworks that force you to service at the right time, allow you to touch the right things, see the right things on a regular basis is so key to guiding an organization. So I love it, Scott. I appreciate the input. All right, so that's taking inventory of effort. Do it on a regular basis. Make it simple. Take Scott's suggestion. Keep a list as it comes, and then address it regularly, and you'll be better off for it. The next framework that I want to get into is a little bit of an add-on or a piggyback on this first step of identifying those different areas where there may be more friction. Scott, can you see this slide? I'm getting a little load arrow on my.
Yes, it's 5 cars up, 5 cars back.
Okay, I'm gonna try to go back one and go back. I'm not seeing it myself. Let's see here.
Well, I can click through it if you want me to.
That's all good. I'm gonna I've got a copy of this on my end too, so if it's not gonna load, I will cheat. Here we go. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so 5 cars back, 5 cars up, 5 cars back. So we talked a little bit about the whole traffic jam. The car accident was right in front of you. So we got these bags of patient effort stacking up right here. It can seem like a collision, and there's this ripple effect. And so your ability to analyze that and look forward and backward can be incredibly insightful in allowing you to diagnose and not just deal with the symptoms and get to the root causes and go deeper in terms of creating a better patient strategy. So I've got a couple of examples. Again, this is something you want to regularly do and sit down with the team and map it out. And so the first example I've got here, it's an observed event. You've got, a patient or patients who are often confused about financial arrangements. All right, so it's easy to see the downstream impacts of what that might do. So the patient's stressed. You've got more stress than you might want during your visits. They leave frustrated. And then your team's spending extra time with questions, which slows down everything. And then you've got a higher likelihood of negative reviews or word of mouth. And then ultimately patient either delays or avoids treatment altogether. It kind of goes on and on and on. And you may observe these in any order, but you can see easily, where you've got these downstream impacts when we're not taking care of financial arrangements properly. And so if you look forward, and this doesn't have to be 5, by the way, every time. It won't be. You'll, as far as you can forward to where it's productive. All the way here on the right, as an example. So if you got insurance that wasn't confirmed at scheduling, goes deeper from there. It's not verified, never entered into your software. Your financial arrangements coordinator didn't proactively set the right expectations. And then the patient's getting unclear or contradictory information, and the whole thing's just off the rails, right? So you can easily see this is just a simple example of where you can take an event that you're seeing, observing, and try to step forward and map it forward, map it backwards, and start to come up with a game plan with where you should have better protocols and procedures for next issue avoidance. For what are the adjacent things that are going to happen that we can avoid altogether from the get-go. Does that make sense, Scott?
Yeah. So these 4 things on this slide and the 5 things on the previous slide, those little crash boxes, they all represent a spot to make a change, or like for example, insurance not confirmed at scheduling and then not verified or entered, that could be a simple daily audit that we look at the next 2 days to make sure that that's been done. It takes, a minute max. And now we're preventing this whole series of pileups, right? And we could also look at other things like in the system. So if we go to the previous slide, it talks about, the results of this confusion. Well, every single box again is a spot where we can create some sort of solution. So maybe patients are uncertain or stressed because we didn't show them images. If we can make sure that every single exam has these 3 images, suddenly that confusion goes away. Maybe they're uncertain because we printed the wrong form. We printed the open dental treatment plan form, which is horrible. If we use instead a modified treatment plan form, the modified form is very simple. Suddenly we get rid of all that, right? And so we can take a look at the thing that's not working. Patients are confused or complaining about financial arrangements, and we can look at the causes of that and try to put in audits or controls or changes. And I know we all know this, but it doesn't mean we're actually doing it, right? So often a patient doesn't understand something, and our team wants to blame the patient, and our patient wants to blame someone, and the dentist just wants to blame a team member. I just wish I could find better team members, right? And the reality is the team's trying to do great, and the patient wants to have a good experience. And, the reality is it's so often the systems of the practice that are off, and there's friction in them, and they're squeaking. And these complaining patients are the squeaks that we hear. And, we think that we need better people to push this machine harder, when really we just need to grease it up with proper systems so it moves easier without friction. That's something like, where I don't know if you're aware of this. I'm literally giving a practice management seminar tomorrow morning for 2 days, but that is our practice management mastery course. That's exactly what we do in that course. Is we try to teach the frictionless or the low friction ways to operate so we don't end up in this situation.
Nice. Okay, so let's see here. Next example, scheduling issues. So whether it's not full enough, or it's inconsistent, you don't have a consistent, flow of in your schedule, or you're booking too far out. Again, so you've got frustration with patients trying to coordinate their appointment times. That then leads to potential gaps in continued care. Hygiene frequency, as that kind of takes root. If they're still trying to come back to you, it's going to knock off and throw off their consistency in one way or the other. And ultimately, patients potentially opting for another practice with easier scheduling process, which is what you don't want to get to that last car. Now, looking up the root causes, just a pure lack of convenient appointment times. You need to expand. You need to add hygiene. What needs to happen so that you can make more convenient times available. Having an overly complicated system or process for scheduling, it's got to be fluid. It's got to be easy. Use online scheduling. A team not proactively scheduling the next visit or pre-appointing. That's a huge one. And all the way down to not enough urgency or importance being put on care. It's not being clearly communicated. So patients aren't scheduling. They're not accepting enough treatment. Again, these are all parts of the equation that you can look and say, hey, this is a part I need to focus on and map out so that we get a better outcome all the way down the line here. Frequent callbacks, questions after visits. So very easy to see how that increased workload at the front is going to have some negative effects. Whether it's just their efficiency, even to the point of morale, if it's bad enough. There's not enough being handled in the right spots, and it's all being dumped on certain areas of the practice. That's not good. You got patient frustration with the need to repeat, the repeated need for clarification. You got impact on the perception of the practice that ultimately comes down to trust. So if they're not getting the information that they need up front and constantly having to come back, that's going to be a negative experience, and their perception of you as a professional, as a clinical provider, ultimately will be diminished over time.
Yes.
Missed opportunities. Go ahead.
Yeah. So often, what I think patients want is they want someone to hold their hand through our process. And that someone is almost like the auditor of the process to make sure the patient got everything they needed. So if we could imagine this someone, let's just call it a dental assistant. This dental assistant goes back and gets the patient from the lobby, and this dental assistant has a 28-point checklist or 28 items on a checklist to make sure that we've remembered to do every single thing we're supposed to do in the op. And that dental assistant is also the person handing off in between the patient and the doctor, the patient and the treatment coordinator, just making sure that every I was dotted, every T crossed, right? And I feel like that's so often missing because in busy practices that aren't thoughtful about this, that aren't understanding what you're teaching us right now, they kind of throw patients from one person to another. Like, now it's your patient, catch, right? And,
Right.
there's not the person that's holding the patient's hand. Patients want to be led so that there's no friction. And otherwise they feel abandoned. And that abandoned patient becomes a confused patient with a lot of questions, with a lot of concerns, with a bad review, with unrealistic expectations. The abandoned patient is our problem. We need to hold their hand.
Spot on, spot on. And so much of that is just a huge missed opportunity if you're not getting it right to build loyalty. I mean, if you're hand holding, if you're a guide, as Scott's suggesting, there's endless opportunity to build relationship, to build loyalty and trust in that kind of an approach. It's huge. It's huge. Okay, so looking up at the cause, the root causes here, you got lack of a clear post-op guidance, whether it's education, materials, follow-up routine, the right check-ins when it's appropriate. If you've got complex procedures, having the right routines in place so that you're touching base and you're following up when it's needed instead of letting it hang in the balance. And then poor internal communication. This is I think ties into what Scott said really well as well. Just the whole passing patients around. I think this is illustrative of that. It really can create a lot of mixed messages for the patients and how they experience that as well. All right, so here's where dental warranty comes into play. So in itself, a lot of a framework. It's very much a service framework. What we bring to the table, and so as a kind of a precursor, I want to make it really clear though that even though we can check this box together and do it way better together, this is something you need to be paying attention to, whether or not you ultimately look to us as a partner to do this with. So take some notes here, and then keep in mind that there's more you can learn about and how we come to the table and are able to do this way better together than you could do alone. But the way that you stand behind your care, so your warranty for patients, is a bit of a super framework. It's a way you can stack the odds in your behavior, everything in your favor. Everything we talked about today, there's an element that ties into how you do this and if you get it right or get it wrong. And so here's what all the most successful brands know, is that there's tremendous value in proactive assurance. And so they build predictable, positive experience, consistent, ongoing experience into the value of what they're giving their customers up front. They don't leave it up to chance. It's not an afterthought. They make incredible products, whether it's Apple, amazing car makers, premium luggage that lasts forever, lifetime warranties, whatever it is. They know they make something great, and they want patients to understand that no matter what, they're going to be good. They're going to have that same expectation out of what they're buying. It's part of their decision up front. It's not an after the fact kind of thing. And so what we create together is we come in and we help you turn your backup plan, whatever. I mean, it may be formalized already or it may not, but we're able to put something together, a protection plan for your patients that is clear and consistent for 6 years. It's in writing. It's part of your treatment presentation process. So it sets the right expectations up front. It sets the value. It sets that peace of mind. It puts it to work right from the very beginning. It's life proof, meaning whatever happens, wherever the patient goes, it follows them if they can't come back to you. So it expands this way beyond the walls of your practice. Um, and it's smart value. It's full coverage for the patient, so they don't have to pay again if something goes wrong or if something fails time to time. And then you, as the practice doing this, will get paid. You'll be reimbursed your full fee to do that. So it totally levels the playing field. Everybody wins, and everybody's happy. So you're planning from the beginning for a win-win. It's healthy. You have healthy, happy patients, and it's healthier for your practice, and it's more profitable for your practice. So the side effects go well above and beyond this that tie into everything we've talked about today as far as building a loyalty plan. It
Yeah. So
creates
Jared,
more memorable. Go ahead.
if I could like kind of rehash some of the things you just said. What
Yeah,
we're
please.
fill in the blanks if I got anything wrong, but what we're talking about is what we in dentistry might call redos or failures, having those covered or warranted. And so if something goes wrong with treatment, whether it's the patient's fault or not, that treatment will be completely paid for again to be redone. Or whatever money that was originally spent on the treatment will be paid again to be applied to the new treatment that's needed. So a great example of this is if we do a buildup and a crown on a patient and whatever, it's $1,500 and there's a warranty on that, then if that crown breaks for any reason, needs to be redone, we're going to get paid the $1,500 again to redo it. Or if that tooth ultimately breaks and we need an implant, let's just say, that $1,500 gets paid toward the cost of the implant. And this is a protection plan for the patient in case anything goes wrong with the dentistry they've got or they need any sort of future revisions. This protects them for 6 years, no matter who the dentist is, no matter what their insurance is. And so this is, like you said earlier, proactively addressing a failure point or a friction point. It is proactively saying, not only are we going to do this dentistry, but you're also protected for the unknown, which might happen. And if that does happen, the patient's not damaged. And if that happens, the practice is not damaged. Because I'll tell you, Jared, most practices have a warranty program. It just sucks. Their warranty program says if something breaks that I did, I'm just going to redo it for free. That's the worst warranty program I've ever heard of. So this is, so did I say all those components right? It's 6 years. It pays for the treatment that was done, even if the patient needs something bigger and different now. And it follows the patient no matter where they go in the US. Did I say that correctly?
Spot on. You got it.
Yeah. So here's something else, Jared. Redos, the cost of redos, they are a silent cancer because nowhere on your profit and loss statement does it say redos cost you $48,000. Like it says supplies cost you this, lab, utilities, but there's no redo column because the redos are happening under the table. There's no kind of transaction occurring. So practices that are able to bring a warranty into their organization, that redo becomes additional profit for them now. About 90% profit margin on the redo. So, and that redo is about 3% or so of practice collections. So a $2 million practice has 60 grand of redos. Did I say that right?
You did. And in some cases, it's a little bit higher. I mean, it paints the perfect picture. So you go from what's a total loss to total gain. And over the course of, 7 to 10 years with some of our practices, they're at the point where they're seeing what we call net practice gains of well over $1 million as they put the simple process of really it's not a huge departure from what you're already doing. And actually, doing it the way we coach should increase case acceptance generally. Hygiene compliance, because part of the routine is the patient's got to come back for their continuing care to keep their coverage active. So you're reinforcing healthy habits, good things for the patient, and makes sense for patients to do their part. So all in all, it's an extremely beneficial routine or framework to put in place.
Yeah. So what I've seen with our coaching clients that have put this in place is, and for those of y'all listening, you can do some math here. Take your practice collections and take 3/4 of that. And that represents approximately the amount of dentistry that could be warranted. about 3/4 of your collections. So if you're a $2 million practice, you got $1.5 million potentially of warrantyable dentistry. Then when you put a warranty on it, obviously you're super profitable if the dentistry fails and you redo it and you get paid for it all over again and the patient's protected. Obviously, there's that whole thing, which can be significant. That could be, $60,000 a year in payments that you would have never had. But in addition to that, you make about 2 percentage points on that warrantyable dentistry from having the warranty. So in other words, a $2 million practice has $1.5 million worth of dentistry that could be warranted. And of that $1.5 million, you're going to make about 2 percentage points or about $30,000 profit on the warranties themselves. So you'll make $30,000 profit on the warranties. You'll make another $60,000 on the dentistry that does have to be redone. And so there's your 90 grand a year. That's how you get to $1 million, as Jared just said. And no one loses. This doesn't cost the practice anything net. And the patient wins because all their stuff's protected. And there is a cost to the patient for that, but the cost is relatively low comparable to paying to redo everything. And so, this is, to me, is just like a huge no-brainer. And it also, of course, addresses proactively these friction points patients can have if things don't go well. Did I get that math right, Jared?
Exactly. All right, so you've got the lay of the land in terms of how this works. In putting that peace of mind to work, it's tremendously powerful. You're going to elevate your service experience. It's going to work for you as a framework in itself. You'll get higher case acceptance. Hygiene consistency goes up. Profitability as a practice, patient loyalty, all of it, and it's all by design baked into the way that we do this. So I encourage you to reach out, take a snapshot of this QR. You can learn more, grab some more free resources from our team to dig into it. And then you've also got, of course, special program savings through Scott and this practice mastery course as well. So,
well, Jared, I hate to be ultra aggressive, but people need to understand, if I was a dentist, I would make it mandatory that we had a warranty if I was doing any sort of cosmetic case, any sort of significant surgical case like all on four or an implant case, any significant case like that, this would be mandatory. Now, we had a question asked, and I may be able to answer this. She said, I don't understand how redoing treatment makes you money if you're not charging the patient. All right, so let me kind of back up a bit. Let's go through example. A patient needs a $10,000 case. Okay, actually, let's make it easier. A patient needs $1,000 worth of work. It'd be $1,000 in a regular office, but an office that has a warranty program, it's going to be $1,000 plus it's going to be the added cost of having it insured or having a warranty, having it protected. Okay. And so you collect the money from the patient and you've got the warranty and you do the work and you're done. Perfect. Now, maybe this happens to be a patient where the dentistry fails. 5.5 years later, it fails. It's covered for 6 years. When it fails, we submit a claim to dental warranty and we get paid the $1,000 again to redo the failed work. So we're getting paid a second time. If the dentistry fails, we get paid all over again. So to answer Angela's question, this is how you're able to be profitable. Is not only did you make some profit when you added the warranty to the treatment plan, but if that dentistry fails and you redo it, you get paid the full fee all over again when you redo it. And that has a very high profit margin. And I hope I've said that clear enough for everyone. On the flip side, when you do a redo and there's no warranty, it is a profit sucker, especially if you have an associate. Oh my God, if you have to pay another dentist to redo old work, it becomes insanely expensive for the owner of the practice. So if you have associates, if you have multiple locations, if you do bigger cases, if you do cosmetic dentistry, all of those things should be pushing you really, really hard into putting in a protection program or warranty program in your practice.
Big time. It's huge with associates and groups. Actually, we're having more and more conversations with transitions folks because you put this in place early enough, come time to sell your practice, a buyer coming in and knowing that X% of your patients for the next X years, are totally taken care of, that's an impact on your buy sell and how you deal with that. And there's value. There's value there big time.
All right, so we've got the QR code right here. If anyone needs to connect with you and learn more about it, I really do encourage everyone to do that. I cannot think of a single reason why you would not have a formal warranty program in your practice. On the next slide, real quick, those of you that want to come see me at one of my speaking events, I've got a seminar tomorrow actually, but I give these seminars throughout the year. If you've been meaning to come and hear me speak and go through my intense business training courses, use this code. You'll save quite a bit of money. It'll probably cover your flights and hotel. It's a significant savings. So use that code. Also, go ahead and subscribe to our Dental CEO podcast. I have a new episode every week. I try to make them super interesting or valuable. Text the word podcast to that number and it'll automatically get you kind of subscribed to the podcast. It would be a very good habit in your life, when you're working out, when you're driving to work, to like take in great content. And I hope our podcast can be one of the things that you take in. So I'll go back a slide real quick for those of y'all that didn't get that. And then I'll go back one more time here to the dental warranty slide. So Jared, we're going to have to wrap this up. So before I turn it back over to you for your last words, I want to say there's certain parts that are difficult in dentistry about being an owner. And one part is dealing with failed dentistry and the patient kind of in the moment dealing with that as well as financially. And in the past, we dentists have all just kind of bent over and took it up to, when something fails, we just kind of give up and raise the white flag and say, okay, we'll redo it. Okay, we won't get paid. Okay, I don't blame you, patient. And that's what we've done. And, it's probably not the smartest way to set up the practice. So if we can set up a practice where, especially the big work, but if we can be protected as owners to have this big work covered, protected, warranted, and we can communicate that well to the patient, we kind of get a big win-win. And if you don't understand this quite yet, you need to schedule a time to go through a demo and understand the terms of this so that hopefully you can see how it falls into place in your organization. All right, Jared, any last words before we call it a night?
No, I just wanted to recap, what Scott touched on earlier. I mean, knowing and doing are two very different things. My challenge to everybody here is to step back through and to make time to build these cadences into your process. You'll be a better leader. You'll address friction at the right time, the right places, in the right way. And as you put in that diligent work, it's just like a well-coached win versus luck in a nail-biter game. Right? I mean, we all see the last play, and is that really where the game is won and lost? And the reality is, it's the inches along the way in which it was well coached and taken the time to create the exact experience strategically that you want your patients to have. They will feel it, they will experience it, and they will come back to you as they experience a better care process that you've thought through and created for them. So go create your design and win. I appreciate everybody tuning in and wish you the best of luck on the adventure ahead.
Awesome. So we're going to wrap this up. Jared, thank you so much for sharing this with us. And guys, we have these webinars regularly on all kinds of different topics. Look at some of the past ones we recorded and obviously keep an eye out for the new ones coming on. I hope this was valuable for you guys. I hope you got something out of it. And I hope you reach out to Jared and Dental Warranty, learn more about their product. And of course, I hope I see you at a future event. So thank you, everyone. Have a great night. And I'll see y'all on our next webinar series. Good night.